Hey, Magic Man here, and I know it's been a while since I've uploaded a video, but I'm bringing you a video that I've been wanting to record for a while. I think I played this game back in the first week of May, so it's been a while since I've been able to sit down and record anything. But hopefully I can start being a little bit more regular again, and this is the Tier 5 British Cruiser. This is the Emerald. I didn't want to move up to the Leander without training my captain to have concealment expert first, because I felt like it was going to make my time in that ship and this one a little bit easier. So I've been grinding out captain experience in my Belfast, which is an excellent ship, by the way, and if you don't have it, if it ever goes on sale again, I would suggest buying it, because it is incredibly overpowered as a cruiser. Now, the Emerald, and by extension all the ships that have come before it, not that great at cruisers, actually. It's not really until you get the Leander that it starts getting better, and then the Fiji starts getting real good. And I'm actually taking pot shots here at that new Italian cruiser, the premium cruiser, and this is one of the strengths that you just saw right there of the British cruisers. I would have gotten out of the way if those torpedoes had they not died off right there, and I'm pretty sure those torpedoes are from the Fubuki. I don't think it could be from anybody else, because they're right in the. They would have been had to have been launched right from the middle of those islands, but I'm not quite sure where the citadel on the Italian cruiser is. I'm guessing it's a little bit further back than where I'm currently aiming, judging by where the smokestack is, so I'm guessing that's why I'm not hitting it. Either way, this is definitely one of the strengths of the British cruisers right here. Once you have concealment expert, you can actually push up pretty close and smoke up and basically be very defensive and hold a point, as long as you have somebody spotting for you, which I do. I have quite a few allies here. That shot was probably a little high, but I have a feeling I probably would have hit the citadel of that cruiser had it been lower. Now, the British cruisers do have the advantage of the single fire torpedo, but I chose to use the close spread or the tight spread to launch torpedoes into that smoke screen. Maybe I get lucky and hit that cruiser, but since it was the Tier 6 German destroyer, he does have hydroacoustics, so he probably spotted those coming. But this does give me a good opportunity to get some damage in on him. This was a very dangerous position, but due to the fact that I had hydroacoustic up the whole time, the torpedoes weren't much of an issue, but they might have been if I didn't have that ability. Now, unfortunately for me, the AP on the British cruisers, while being special in the fact that it has a shorter fuse time than most AP, so it doesn't quite bounce as much. Unfortunately, when you're shooting at a battleship or anything else with a lot of armor or any sort of angle, it still bounces and really negates your damage. And in these lower tiers like this, man, the 7-second reload really hurts when you've only got a bunch of single turrets, especially when you're maneuvering. But thanks to the destroyer at the beginning of the match that laid the smoke screen and me keeping an eye on it, I was able to lay another smoke screen after his dissipated and remain relatively undetected that whole time and get in some fairly decent damage for the guns on this ship. You have to keep that in mind when you're playing these ships. You're not going to be doing a ton of damage unless you can get some torpedo hits. It's just the reload and the placement of the turrets, not to mention that in general the community as a whole has gotten better at oh, that's a British cruiser in that smoke, I need to angle and effectively neutralize most of the damage that he's going to be dealing to me. So that's just some of the things that you have to deal with. The sad thing about moving on from the Emerald to the Leander is you actually lose a set of torpedo tubes. The Leander, the Fiji, and I forget what the tier 8 is, but all 3 of those ships only have one torpedo tube on each side. So this is one of the great strengths of this ship, I felt, was the fact that I have 2 torpedo launchers on each side that I can single launch torpedoes from, giving me a total of 8 torpedoes on each side. And when you landed those torpedoes on people with the single launch ability, you just devastated them. And as you can see there, you can do a considerable amount of damage to destroyers because of the way the AP is geared in the British cruisers. Because it detonates just a little bit quicker, you're going to have a lot more penetrations versus over penetrations. So you're going to do 33% of the damage that your armor piercing would do versus the 10% that pretty much everybody else is going to do, those destroyers, when they hit them with their armor piercing. So you can really wreck destroyers if they get in close. And one thing that I actually like to do, if there's cover approaching a cap and I know there's a destroyer in it, I usually like to sail up close if I can, pop a smoke, and then pop my hydroacoustic and just blow those destroyers away. Now, unfortunately, you don't get to see that in this game because this is a standard battle, but you know, it is what it is. And I felt like I held this flank, or at least was a big enough presence to make everybody turn around. And so now I'm going to turn around and head the other direction because it looks like there's only just this New Mexico back here who's holding off the rest of these enemy ships, and he's actually sailing away from them. I don't want our cap to get taken by the enemy destroyer, who I saw was last seen in those islands to the southeast of me, and I'm pretty sure he's probably close to the cap by now. If not, he's doing something incredibly dumb, but you know, that's just my opinion. You know, he could have some sort of crazy master plan that I don't know about. So I'm going to basically sit here and defend to let everybody else spot for me. I'm guessing this Leander is going to smoke up sometime soon. Either that or he's just going to keep cruising out in the open where I can continue to penetrate him, which is not very smart. And oh man, a battleship just destroyed most of his health. And that was actually the first ship I've sank in this game. Now, I don't have to worry about torpedoes here because I know he was not close enough to launch him, but our cap is being capped right now, so that tells me that the enemy destroyer is in our base, although I have no idea where. He's probably on the other side of the cap, close to that island, but considering the fact that it stopped capping there for a second and then continued capping, I'd say my prediction about where he is probably about spot on. I think he sailed through just an outside portion of the cap and then came back into it. Yeah, and there he is. Right there. He is going to smoke up, but it isn't going to help him, unfortunately, because I am going to move in close enough that he's not an issue. I think the detection range of ships with the hydroacoustic on the British ships is 3.9 or 4 kilometers. It's not very far, but you know, it's good enough. It's definitely good enough. And I haven't seen him come out of there, so I actually decided to launch torpedoes instead. He should be fairly close to being reloaded with his torpedoes, and when I actually looked at the timer on my hydroacoustic, yeah, so apparently it's about 3.6 is the detection range on the hydroacoustic, but he's going to end up sailing right into those torpedoes. He really doesn't have a chance. Yeah, and got him with one torpedo. Devastating strike. He's done for. And luckily for me, since he laid this smokescreen here, basically as a present for me, I'm going to use it to continue to block line of sight from this Congo, and I'm just going to hammer this guy. Now it looks like I'm getting help from a Cleveland and possibly a Graf Spee. Not quite sure, and crap. Unfortunately, the smoke from the destroyer starts to dissipate, so I have to lay my own smoke, but I don't think it's going to be too big of an issue at this point. Mainly just due to the fact that, well, this Congo I don't think is going to last long. And I am using the single launch torpedo feature there. I had no idea where this guy was going to go. But he is basically just going to turn around and do a 180. So I unfortunately did not lead enough, it doesn't look like, with my torpedoes. Yeah, and so the first set are going to miss, the second set are going to miss. It's unfortunate for me. I overestimated how fast he was going to be going after the turn, and I underestimated where he was going to be with that first set. So, you know, you hit some, you don't. I was a little bit rusty at this point. I haven't been playing World of Warships that much lately, just because I don't really have the time. But when I do, I still really enjoy this game, and the British cruisers are incredibly easy to play. I feel like they are very beginner friendly, even though Wargaming says they're not. But you know, that's my opinion. Now, so far this game has actually been pretty good to us, but we still haven't won it yet. Our New Mexico is very low, but it looks like the rest of my team is fairly healthy, so unless the enemy team does something drastic or my team decides to do something really stupid, then I think we should have this game under control and in the bag. And I'm basically just going to push up over here and try and use these islands as cover. I may even sneak into the enemy base. I haven't really made up my mind at this particular point in time. Now, if our New Mexico and that Leander over on the flank die, I was going to go cap because I felt like I probably needed to split the enemy team up. They are sort of concentrated right now, but it looks like their New Mexico is about to go down, and that'll give us a fairly large advantage. At this point, I don't think they can pull it back. So yeah, I'm basically just going to sit here and farm some damage now, because I really don't need to push up and do anything at this point. We stalled their push on the flank to the north at the very beginning of the game just by making our presence felt, and then we turned around and dealt with the enemies that were pursuing our New Mexico and got into the cap and denied them the cap. And at this point, they've basically been surrounded and they are going to die. So this was a pretty good game overall. This is sort of textbook how it's supposed to kind of be. You know, you you move up to a flank, you deploy your smoke, you fight defensively, stop the enemy push, or at least that's what I like to do with these British cruisers, and then you go assist elsewhere once the enemy has turned around and is fleeing. Now, I'm very close to actually getting the Leander. I've played most of the British cruiser line on the test server, and I really enjoyed it overall, and I think it's a great line. If you're on the fence about it, if you should play it, you should definitely go ahead and dive in. The first, basically all the ships up till tier 7 are pretty rough to play through, to say the least, but you know, once you get to the Fiji, it really turns around. And if you didn't see my hit counter a little bit before, you know, the Warspite wasn't very heavily angled, but he still bounced most of my shells, and that's just a lot of the things that you'll have to deal with. I'm betting most of these shells right here are probably going to bounce if any of them even make contact. And this is going to pretty much be the game right here once that Warspite gets spotted. I'm actually going to try and get around the corner and and catch him. But I do actually get a Confederate. I've just sort of been spreading damage around, as I do in most games. I look for the most appealing target and go after them because, honestly, that's the way that you're going to deal the most damage. And unless somebody's incredibly low, I usually don't try and chase after them, because if you overextend, typically the enemy's not going to die. You're going to get killed, and all you're going to have done is literally just sunk your ship and not really helped your team out in any way. That's the bad part about chasing ships, and people do it all the time. So, it is what it is, and we do spot the Warspite, and for whatever reason, he's actually got his guns pointing in this direction. Don't understand why, but you know, actually end up shooting a little bit behind him, unfortunately. But this should be the game right here if I get a couple of penetrations. Yep. Okay, so moving on to the results from this battle. Actually did 70,000 damage. We hit 140 shells, sunk 3 targets, and ended up getting the Confederate and Devastating Strike Medal. Actually made 2,400 experience after the multipliers were applied, and got 1,600 base experience, and sort of ended up on the top of the team there. The rest of those guys that were still alive, they probably pulled just as much weight as I did. I just happened to be in the right spot to deal some damage. Now, we definitely spread our damage around. As you can see, dealt anywhere between like 7 to 13,000 to at least 6 different ships, and all of our damage, with the exception of 7,000 of it, came from the armor-piercing shots from the guns. And not a huge money-making game, but it's not a premium ship, so I'm not going to cry about it. But that's just a typical British cruiser game for you. If you like this video, please hit the like button and subscribe if you want to see more. Okay, so moving